Hello, Aravindan sir. How are you?
Fine, namaste.
Uh,
Happy to see you.
After since we started this, we've been meaning to have you on the show. So thank you for coming because you don't come to Delhi. Very rarely you come here, and
Mostly I don't go to any talk shows also.
and we had talked about it when you were supposed to come here. We had to go to Rakhi Gadi. So maybe next time because
Yes.
this time your schedule is too packed. So we should start directly because we have already spent 1 hour
Yeah.
talking about. We should have recorded it. I'll directly start with the word Hindu
Mm.
because and generally I don't ask questions like this, but this is such a heavy book. Uh, I have prepared questions for the first time.
Okay.
Uh, the word Hindu,
Mm.
we have been told uh, over the last few decades that this word that we have got is foreign word,
Mm.
that this was what the Persians called.
Mm.
They had given us this name because of the river Sindhu.
Mm.
Now your thesis is that this word is not Persian.
Mm.
It is very much has the origin in our
Mm.
Vedic roots, the name itself.
Yes.
So please explain that how it is actually related to the Soma ritual.
Mm.
And just one addition to this,
Mm.
we have the concept of lunar dynasty, Chandravanshi.
Mm.
Was that somehow related? It is not mentioned in the book, but was that somehow it related to this concept also?
Okay. Now, uh, there are two important things about the name Hindu that is being um, rejected by this book,
Hmm.
the thesis of this book. One is that it was given by foreigners, and the second is that it is purely a geographical term. Okay, both are rebutted in this. It is up to the readers to accept it or critically analyze it. They should critically analyze it and then they can accept it or reject it. The point is, this was first a particular aspect of an Harappan civilization was identified by Dr. Airavata Mahadevan. Now,
Hmm.
Dr. Airavata Mahadevan was a Dravidianist. He believed that the Aryans migrated from outside and that the linguistic culture of Harappan civilization was Dravidian. Okay, so I'm telling this fact to emphasize that the person who first talked about the term Hindu in terms of Soma ritual and connecting it to a cultural aspect was not a Hindutvaite.
Hmm.
Okay, but so what exactly he said was that when he was looking at the so-called cult object before the unicorn symbol in Harappan civilization, he remembered a particular Soma ritual filter
Hmm.
and the drops that are coming out of this particular filter were called Hindu in Vedic literature. And he said that a very interesting statement he made. He said that Harappan culture is Vedic and Harappan language is Dravidian. Okay. So it was a very interesting thesis and convoluted also when you take into account this particular aspect. Nevertheless, this observation was very important that Hindu was later to this. Number one. So you have here the Soma and you have here the Hindu. And then if you take the Rigvedic Nadi Sukta, you find that Susoma is used as a synonym for a branch of Sindhu river.
Hmm.
Okay. So now connecting all these together, we can say
Sindhu is basically Susoma.
in the Nadi Sukta, a branch of Sindhu river
Yeah.
is called Susoma.
Hmm.
Now other river is associated with Soma. Okay. So connecting all this, we can say that Hindu, Sindhu, Soma all are related. Okay. That is number one. Number two, I am talking about the integration of bicameral mind based on the framework given by Ram Swarup. In fact, the bicameral mind, breakdown of bicameral mind framework was given by Julian Jaynes, a psychologist. And independently, Ram Swarup came up with this integration, a beautiful integration in the Indian context. So I combined both, and when this bicameral mind phenomenon happened, when there was a breakdown and a monotheistic religion emerged, and a non-dualist matrix emerged, and unit, a creator-God unit, and a unity, they both emerged. The unity could accommodate diversity, whereas the creator-God unit could not accommodate diversity. So it becomes hostile to the mother culture in the Indian context, and they migrate out. Then they call these people, identifying Hindu, Sindhu, and their religious, spiritual orientation, they call them Hindus. Because in the various inscriptions, there is talk about destruction of the temples of the Devas by the worshippers of Ahura Mazda. Okay. So if you just remove Ahura Mazda, and if you are going to put there the religion of peace, and if you are going to replace the temple of Devas, and no, you don't replace temple of Devas, allow the temple of Devas, just you have another one description of Alauddin Khilji or Aurangzeb. So it is there it starts. Okay, the destruction of theodiversity by a single monotheist God. Right? And those people have told that these people are Hindus. So when they used the term Hindu, they just didn't mean a geographical term. There was a very clear spiritual religious connotation to this term. Number one. Number two, did we use the term Hindu? Right? We very clearly we can see that the Soma ritual related to Sindhu, and the word Hindu related to Soma, because Hindu essentially means drop.
Which means moon.
Initially drop, and it then relates to moon. Now, in the 7th century, at least 1300 years before, 7th century, when Huan Song comes, he points out that this nation is called Hindu.
And I want to quote just one line. This is appropriate, he says. The bright connected light of holy men and sages guiding the world as the shining of the moon have made this country eminent, and so it is called Hindu.
Yes. Now, the light he is talking about is that of the moonlight, because moonlight is pleasant. Right? And it guides people during the night. The family of nations get guided by this light, this spiritual light that comes. Of course, can you connect this to Chandravansh and Suryavansh? Actually, you cannot, because we are talking essentially here about the religion, about spirituality. That becomes the basis. This is something very important. When we are talking about the narrative, Indian narrative, indigenous Indian narrative, we have to understand that the religion gets its prominence, not the dynasties. So,
but I was just saying that in the sense that they might have, to justify their rule, they might have appropriated that
I don't think
linkage.
they appropriated it. This comes from two branches, from the solar and the lunar.
Okay.
It is not related to this particular aspect.
Okay.
So here you have the term Hindu very clearly coming right from the Vedic times, with a clear spiritual and geographical connotation. Not just geographical, not just spiritual and geographical connotation, right from the beginning to the times of Krishnadevaraya, to the times of the Vijayanagara Empire, when they tell that we are the Hindu Raya. Yeah. Because each time this nation gets attacked, the theodiversity of the nation gets attacked, then the self realizes itself, the national self, that Deen Dayal Upadhyaya called the Siddhi, that realizes itself and brings forth itself as Hindu. It is like an organism. The organism doesn't have to, inside of the organism, doesn't have to define each and every time it's a self. When a foreign organism enters and is becoming harmful, then either it has to be neutralized or it has to be vanquished, and then the inside system creates the self and the non-self. The same thing applies here.
Okay. Page 138. So, you link it very intricately to science. Okay. You mention on page 38 that modern scientific attempts to link religious phenomena with the neural correlates, including the evolutionary roots and consequences, seem to essentially reinforce the Indic vision of religion. What do you mean by this? How this neural science is linked to the idea of religion and including the Indic vision of or the Hindu vision of religion?
The Hindu vision of religion is the only vision of religion that gave importance to it, that gives importance to experience, not dogma, not belief. Everything, the text becomes a map towards an experience. Okay. And the science, modern science, particularly the neuroscience, it is now looking into this experience aspect of religion for the first time. Okay. And I have quoted the research of Andrew Newberg and Michael Persinger and V.S. Ramachandran. So they all point out one thing, that God may or may not be true, we don't know. But the God experience is true. And the God experience, there is a term for it called absolute unitary being. And this absolute unitary being, or the absolute unitary phenomenon that happens, what it actually does is that it transcends the limited self and moves you towards a boundless unity, a non-dual unity with all. Basically empathy also. Okay. And Hindu Dharma is, in my limited knowledge, Hindu Dharma is the only religion that has put the emphasis on experience, on the spiritual experience, attaining that spiritual experience, and not on the belief. You don't have to believe a God. You have to realize the God. You don't have to believe a particular concept. You use the concept and you realize the unity with all beings. Okay. So in that manner, Hindu Dharma is the only thing that resonates with modern neuroscience discoveries related to religion. But this is, again, I am telling you, is a short-lived window. Okay. If Hindus are not taking into account this aspect, and if they are not going to build the narrative based on this, this window will close and this aspect will be taken over by
Christian neural networks.
Yeah. Already it is happening, and we cannot tell it as a negative phenomenon. I will tell you that also. For example, if there is some neuroscience research going on about a particular Christian religious experience, and if Christianity integrates that with its theology, it should do that. It is a positive phenomenon for humanity, actually. But the point is, in India, what happens, it is with its usual medieval control-based, belief-based fundamentalist form. You have to very clearly differentiate these two. If you take some of the theologians of the church in the West, they are talking very subtle, very high philosophy. And they are giving that kind of Christianity there. Whereas in India, the kind of Christianity that is coming is a Christianity that is fundamentalist, and a Christianity that controls masses, a Christianity that is very medieval. The reason is, this will be supporting that. This becomes the mass base for Christianity. In fact, the center of gravity of Christian population is shifting towards Asia. So you will have a luxurious, wonderful theology of Christianity there, based on all these scientific discoveries and everything, strengthening itself. Whereas it will be having all the ill effects of their religion imported here. So we have to counter that. Hence, we have to use all the instruments, all the discoveries that are happening around, and we have to take it further through dharmic framework.
When I was reading this, and because you also quote a person who experimented with LSD induced altered states of mind, I was wondering whether the spiritual experiences that different religion induce or their practices induce, for example, between Sanatan Dharma or the paganism and the monotheistic mind. Do you think there would be some difference, fundamental
There are
difference in the
fundamental
wiring?
differences. There are fundamental differences, not in the wiring, in these regions and in the processes, internal processes that these religious practices
And
use.
those can be confirmed by neurophysics?
Neuroscience, yes.
Yeah.
For example, I will tell you one thing. You take Michael Persinger's God helmet that we are talking about here.
Yeah.
Okay, when you are using the God helmet, what happens is that you get some kind of a temporal lobe epilepsy. Okay, and that induces a strong sense of a great presence. Strong sense of a great presence. That presence dictates you, makes you a prophet. It gives you visions, it gives you commands, and then what happens is that you become a prophet. And you talk of that presence as that great God. Okay? Whereas there are other experiences, other neuro experiences, religious experiences, where you have boundlessness. You feel everything is one. Like in the case of, for example, an episode is told about Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, where a cow was walking on the grass and he could feel the hoof of the cow on his body. That is the extreme empathy that you can talk about. Okay, so that kind of empathy in which you become one with the universe, you feel the pain of every being, and you feel the bliss of being one with the entire cosmos. So those kind of processes are also there. Now, they are neural correlates. Both are neural correlates. Okay, and the neural correlates does not mean causation. By this, what I mean is that correlation can never mean causation, may or may not. Okay, that means not because of this brain processes this experience is happening, or because this experience has been consciously achieved by the sadhak, so these processes are being induced and happening in the brain. We do not know. It is a complicated philosophical place where we are not going. But what we do know is that there are certain processes, religious processes, that lead to feeling of a presence. There are certain religious processes, certain religious practices that lead to the experience of a cosmic unity. When the Hindu religion has the advantage of both. You have the personal deity and you use the personal deity to get this impersonal, this boundless experience. That is the beauty of this.
And could those states, altered states of mind, be achieved by these, say, different kind of LSDs or mushrooms or all kinds of substances?
See, what happens here is that these are all done through a lot of cultural practices. When you use...
I'm asking because it is possible that these were some things that were consumed by, for example, people 4,000, 5,000 years back for the first time when they realized it, or in the process, like 10,000 years, whenever. First, maybe that would have happened. Then they might have experimented with, like, how can we achieve those states without the intervention of these outer substances?
Exactly. And they also did another one thing. They combined the intake of the substances in a very, very clinical way, combining them with the rituals. And this created the exact sacred psychological space in which you would intake them. So you are not taking just a needle and you are putting it in a very secular environment, and you will be just creating your inner fears and your inner joys and your this. No. What they did was, through a very controlled, very sacred, ritualistic environment, taking small amount of prescribed amount of substances, it induced great creativity in you, and it also helped you to go through the path. And then you can also achieve them without all these things. Also you can achieve them. That also they have discovered. And again I have to say this, that to my knowledge, Hindu Dharma is the only civilizational system that exists today that has taken into account all these things, and it has created separate traditions in which you can, according to your aptitude, according to your interest, according to your nature, you can choose any of these paths. No other. They would say that let us reduce it into kind of drug addiction or drug abuse. Let us completely stamp it out and keep away all these things. Let us only believe in a particular form of religion. Let us only believe in a particular form of ritual. Hindu Dharma is the only civilizational framework which has allowed multiplicity of paths.
You talked about neural correlates. For example, you gave the example of extreme empathy. I was wondering, like, is that harmful or helpful? When you are faced with so many challenges in a life, would it help or would it obstruct?
A person of extreme empathy could be none other than a person like Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. In our recent history, we have said Raman Maharishi. What did you remember the most famous parable of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, where he talks about the snake that was harming everyone, and the sannyasi told the snake not to harm anyone, and then people started taking the snake for granted and started throwing it out and everything, hurting it, and it was almost about to die, and the sannyasi saw it and he said, why you are a snake and you should have frightened them. And the snake said, but you told not to harm anyone. And then the sannyasi says, I told you not to bite but not to hiss. So you should have hissed at least. Hissed at the people. You should have frightened the people. So that was the parable told by a person who has actually experienced and who had transmitted that experience of extreme empathy to people. Okay, that person told that you should, when somebody comes and attacks you, you should be able to chase them away. Okay, a person, Swami Vivekananda was the disciple of this person who felt the pain of each and every human being in the world. He was the one who gave a clarion call for a Hindu nation. Okay, so this extreme empathy, when it is achieved properly through the sadhana, then the person of extreme empathy will know what to do. He will know exactly how to do. And remember, this extreme empathy that I am talking about, it was revealed by Sri Krishna to Arjuna in the battlefield to make him do the war, to make him battle, to make him fight the enemies of Dharma. So, this extreme empathy is not, if it is extreme empathy, real, authentic extreme empathy, if it is really achieved through proper methods in a holistic way, then the person who has this extreme empathy will be the right leader to lead the Hindu nation.
So it's a virtue even for warriors in the field.
It is a must virtue for warriors in the field.
Even those who have to kill.
Yes.
Isn't that contradictory?
The superficial level, it will look contradictory. As Emerson said, I contradict myself because I contain multitude.
But please explain for lesser beings like us.
No. I am also a person, the same wavelength as you, with the same pathos and the same biases and the same this. The point is this, that if you are having empathy, and if you realize that even your enemy is housing Brahman in him or her, then you will never indulge in something like killing the children. You will never indulge in capturing the women and selling them in the markets, like the Islamists did to the Hindu women during partition. There were markets inside Pakistan where Hindu women were sold, and this has been documented by none other than Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Okay.
This has been going on since the invasions begin,
Yeah.
from 7th century to partition,
Partition,
even
and even
1971.
beyond, most
Yeah,
probably, and even now,
it's
most
happening in Sindh
probably,
right now as we speak
for
for
the
for little
Yazidi women.
girls,
Yeah.
underage girls.
Yes. So the point is, a Hindu would never do that when he is, even if he is doing a communal riot. He won't do that. Okay. That is the civilizational uh, inhibitory factor in him. Okay. Because of this empathy that has been transmitted, he may kill, he may even do all these shameful things, but he won't do this institutional violence. Okay. Mob violence, yes, we are not justifying anything. We are not justifying violence. We are not justifying any of the inhuman things that happen during a riot by any person. But the point is,
If
here,
somebody tries to do that, it won't be accepted by the society at large. Nobody can dare to do that. In our society, whenever
yes,
riots happen, nothing of this sort happens.
yes,
But it is very much has been in practice.
because it has been institutionalized. It
Yeah.
has kind of a theological sanction for one particular group of people.
Hmm.
Okay. So let us not get into that actually. Let us concentrate on this particular aspect. So the point is, when you are having empathy and when you are fighting a battle, then your battle actually becomes more efficient, it becomes more dharmic, and it would never lead to, in modern terms, crimes of war against humanity.
Hmm.
So that is how it operates.
Let's talk about one of the most empathetic uh, individualities, or what we see as divine feminine that you mention in your book. We consider those mother figures as the epitome of humanity. So, whenever something bad happens in our society, we have seen that goddess is channelized in some form or another with uh, dharma yudh. It has happened so many times. But what's interesting in this book is that we find so many controversies around the concept of Bharat Mata, that there are temples coming up, and there is an image also, there is an idol also that was installed in Varanasi recently. I think there was a controversy over that also. So how can that be? Like, you are creating a new secular deity.
It
So
is.
please explain that. And another thing, okay, first explain this, then I will ask related question to this.
The book actually deals with a very important question that the historian Irfan Habib had been raising, that Bharat Mata was actually influenced by Britannia.
European,
Yeah.
yeah,
And so it was a colonial import. The very concept of Bharat Mata was a colonial
because
import.
they are the people who refer to their countries as motherland, fatherland.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
etc. And also you have the Britannia, rule Britannia, that Britannia rules the waves, and you show Britannia as a goddess with a trident kind of thing in the hand and the lion and etc., which is very similar to Bharat Mata. So Bharat Mata is essentially a colonial import. So it was a very strong argument actually. But if you go through the entire history of India, you find that Bharat Mata has been there already implicit in in Veda itself. Okay. In Veda itself, it is there. There is the Vak Sutta in Rig Veda, where the goddess calls herself, actually it is a Rishika, and goddess reveals herself through her, and she tells that I am Rashtri, and she tells that I take the bow for the people and I fight for them. Okay. And this image of the goddess as the Rashtri who fights for the people, who takes the arms and fights for the people. It has been transmitted again and again through different streams, including Buddhist streams. It has been transmitted. And in the Buddhist stream, it is Saraswati who takes the weapons and fights. And yes, Ramachandran, one great epigraphist, a friend of mine and a mentor of mine, Sri S. Ramachandran, he points out that Saraswati and Kali were basically united. Bharati, as Bharati, they were united. And then they evolved in different ways. Given all these elements together, we find that the goddess emerges again and again and again at times of important crisis. Who is this goddess? So, when at last the colonial exploitation of India started, then when the entire nation was fighting against, this goddess emerged. The same goddess from the Vedic times as Rashti, she emerged again as Bharat Mata. So it is not a new secular deity. And I have actually used here a very controversial person's painting.
M.F. Hussain.
M.F. Hussain. Okay. M.F. Hussain, you have to study him very clearly, very thoroughly, because M.F. Hussain combines admiration for the Hindu nation, the same time the kind of deep hatred for the diversity. He combines both, and at one particular point of time, the guy became fully convinced that I can play with this and I can get a lot of popularity, and he did what he did later.
But that painting of 1998.
Yes, exactly. That particular painting, he uncompromisingly showed Bharat Mata as Parvati Devi herself. Even in our Hindutva environment, when you show Bharat Mata, you don't show her as Parvati directly. It is implied, but you don't show her as directly as Parvati Devi. But here, he had shown her as directly Parvati Devi with Ganesha, with Shiva, the Himalayas representing Shiva, and the entire land becomes the goddess who worships Shiva. So, the point is, this is not a new secular deity. You cannot create a secular deity in India. Everything is imbued with sacredness, and that sacredness is Hindutva.
And there is a concept mentioned here, the concept of triangle.
Yes.
What is that? Because this was argued when the Britishers united this country. The figure that came was that of a person. So basically that was implied that they have come up with this Bharat Mata concept because of it looks like this geography looks like this in a certain form.
Let us be very clear about one thing. Okay. The axiom of this book is that British never united us. British built structures conducive to their colonial exploitation of India, and for that they used the already existing spiritual sacred landscape that has already been created here through billions of footsteps through generations. Okay. And I have, if you see that, I have quoted another one aspect, that there are the kitchens of Sita. It forms a very beautiful pilgrimage route through the divine feminine.
Yes.
Right? And the bodies of the goddess, the body parts of the goddess had fallen throughout India, and it has formed a
Satis.
Yes. And so all this have
These
already
are Shakti Pithas, right?
Shakti Pithas, all the Shakti Pithas throughout India. So from Kamakya to Kanyakumari.
And Adi Shankara's 4 mathas in different.
You can take Adi Shankara's 4 mathas also in that.
Different corners.
And all this is based on this only. There is already a primordial, not primitive, primordial unity of India established very, very clearly.
Sacred geography.
Yes, sacred geography. It has already been established, and it is predicated upon the divine feminine. And the railway, in fact, the structures that they created, the British created, were a kind of deviation, because Indians always walked from Kasi to Rameshwaram. They walked from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. The British created structures like things that connected the different natural resources to the harbors. So they created railway lines between Madras and other places.
Mumbai not between Kashi and
no, they
Rameshwaram.
didn't create that. Today, you have a government that is again specifically talking about this and trying to bring this connectivity again into foreground.
Ayodhya Express and other things.
Exactly. Right? For example, now we are talking about connecting all the Sri Rama route, connecting all the Ramayana circuits, Buddha circuits, right? For the first time, we are talking about this. We should have done it when we got independence itself, right? We didn't do that. The post-colonial government was following the same deviation of the colonial government. And this colonial government's structure, infrastructure, actually, if allowed to just like that exist, without correction, it would have destroyed India. Because it was all for your exploitation. And different vested interests, once British vested interests were there, now the Indian vested interests would come, and they would be using these ports and this so-called, these are the secular creations, and that would have been accumulated exploitation happening again and again. It would have created economic disparity, and that would have made India weaken and weaken and weaken. And one particular point of time, India would have balkanized itself. And it is the pilgrimage circuit, and today the government, for the first time, the Indian state is coming slowly in sync with the wavelength of the Hindu nation. Right? That is what is happening. So the point is, the yantra is primordial. The British came and it didn't emerge. It was there, and the British came and they tried to use it.
But I wanted to like you to explain the triangle, equilateral triangle that you have mentioned in the book and its origin.
It is essentially the Devi Yantra, and it has been there in the Hindu mind for quite a long time. And I think it was a cartographer, a British cartographer, I have mentioned that particular person, and when he found that, he understood very clearly that what he was discovering was already there in the Hindu mind, and they have created the Shaktipeethas, everything based on this. And hence, it is some kind of an archetype, a sacred geography archetype that is already implicit in the Indian collective consciousness. And he was only rediscovering it. It was not even a discovery, it was a rediscovery. And he openly acknowledged it.
Another narrative that is there in the book is our history or our culture or our discourse essentially has reduced Vande Matram to a communal thing and Gan Man to a secular. Now, please explain that, because there is a lot of misconception about Gan Man being like why Tagore, who was he referring to? Was it King George V or who was it? So please explain the difference between Vande Matram and Gan Man, if there is any difference, because in your book it doesn't appear that there is any difference.
There is no difference.
Yeah.
And the difference is always in the misconceptions, both sides of the fence. Okay, so those who thought that Janagana Mana would make national anthem, we would replace Vande Matram with Janagana Mana, they thought that they are actually secularizing India. And those who opposed it, they said that, okay, somehow I had to vilify Janagana Mana. And so there is this line, Raja Rajeshwara. And so they bounced upon it, and then they said that actually it refers to King George V. And then itself, when this controversy somehow came, at that time there were no social media. Had it been there, it would have been rampant. There was just the print media was emerging. So somebody wrote this, and then
this is actually a big misinformation via WhatsApp. Even today, WhatsApp forwards.
Yeah, WhatsApp is doing.
Yeah.
But before that, some I don't know, radical people did it. None of the great Hindutva leaders did it. For example, Savarkar had great respect for Rabindranath Tagore in his Essentials of Hindutva. He was mentioning Tagore's work as our Hindu work. Okay. And whether it is Mahatma Gandhi or Bose, everybody, they had respect for Rabindranath Tagore. And Tagore himself said that I don't have to answer people who are making such allegations. It is beneath even my contempt. Okay. Now we come to Janagana Mana actually. So in Janagana Mana, in the third stanza, you are talking about He Shirasarati, Tavarata Chakra, Mugarita Pradidin Ratri.
Basically, so Gan Man is the Hindi translation of Bengali original poem.
I think Sanskritized version of,
Yeah,
rather that would
Sanskritized.
be a better thing to say.
Yeah.
It is a Sanskritic this, so that all people in throughout India can feel that actually. So here the third stanza is talking about the reverberating sound of the Radha Chakra of this great Sarathi,
Hmm.
greatest of the Sarathis.
Krishna.
Okay, and also his Sangadvani, it in middle of these riots and battlefields, it removes all the fears. So in the third stanza, he clearly talks about Sri Krishna.
Hmm.
Then the next stanza, he talks about Snehamayi Tumi Mata. The same Krishna here becomes Mata, and also not just any other mother. She is looking after you with unblinking eyes, taking care of you with unblinking animation, unblinking eyes. She is taking care of you. Who is that? In Tamil Nadu, you have Meenakshi. Meenakshi essentially means her eyes are like fish, not just in shape, but also the eyes of the fish, they don't blink. There is a traditional belief in India that wherever the fish is, its eyes are always focused on its eggs. Okay. The same way, here you have the goddess with unblinking eyes, who is always taking care of you, even in the darkest of the nights. That is what the next stanza says. The last stanza, it reveals the identity again as this Raja Rajeshwara, which actually is throughout India a term given to Lord Shiva. Okay. Now, let us go back in time, 5th century, Tamil Nadu. You have one of the greatest devotees of Shiva, Karikalammayar. She sings of the mystery of Shiva, and she says that you have got, when I look at you from one side, I see you as the goddess. When I look at you from other side, I see you as Krishna. I see you as Vishnu. And together, with both the forms united, it is a feminine form that I am seeing. Okay? So, if you put this 5th century's Tamil hymn and this imagery that Rabindranath Tagore wrote in a rapture, one morning he wrote it in a rapturous mood, he wrote it. Compare it both. They are the same. So, whom are you talking of as Bharata Bhagya Vidata? It is not a temporal king. It is the eternal charioteer who was also the goddess who is taking care of you with unblinking eyes, who is also the great king of kings, that is Shiva. So you have Shiva, Vishnu, goddess, all combined together. Nobody else can be brought into this. So this is, in fact, I would say, Vande Matram essentially is about this goddess, the different aspects of the goddess. In fact, Vande Matram resonates with another one ancient hymn to goddess, that it is called Arjuna's hymn to the goddess. Okay, just before the Yuddha starts, Arjuna prays to Durga. And there he tells that you are the goddess who is worshipped in each and every temple of Bharatavarsha. Okay, Jambutiba. So Arjuna says that the same thing you can see reverberating in Vande Matram. But it is about the goddess. Here, he goes into the depth of the being of goddess, how she forms the basis of Krishna, Vishnu, and Shiva, brings together all this and makes that the commanding deity of India. So, if you actually understand the meaning of Janaganamana, then you will find that
there is no question of.
Yes, exactly.
We have talked mostly about Hinduism. Now the book's title is Hindutva. So on page 18, I will just quote it. From the inscription of the Persian Emperor Darius in the 4th century BCE to the Andhra inscription of 14th century CE, the term Hindu has had a consistent inner meaning of a cultural, spiritual, and geographical nature. It has defined the one constant defining genome sequence in the ever evolving national organism of the Hindu nation. The term Hinduness or Hindutva thus defines this ongoing process more appropriately than the term Hinduism. Please explain the difference.
Okay, we were not talking about Hinduism because Hinduism is gives you a feeling that this is some kind of a frozen belief system. I'm not. That is the basis of this book.
Hmm.
Hinduism is not a frozen belief system.
It's a
It is
continuous
Hindu Dharma. It
process.
is a process.
So that's why the better term is Hindutva.
Hindutva is all-encompassing. See, Hindutva process reflected in religion and spirituality, which is very fundamental, to human existence. Okay, in that when it is reflected, it reflects itself as the different sampradayas, and you take together all those sampradayas, you call it Hinduism, Hindu Dharma. Okay, when it reflects itself in literature, when it reflects itself in politics, when it reflects itself in your trade ventures, it takes different forms.
Okay.
But the value system is always there inside as the Hindu. So, Hinduism, the Hindu Dharma becomes a subset of this great Hindutva process.
So the act of being reflected into various aspects of life, that process itself is Hindutva,
Yes.
but the religious aspect is Hindu Dharma.
Yes. If you are going to use the word Hinduism,
Okay, it's a foreign term. Let's discard it. Let's take Sanatan Dharma and Hindutva. Okay, now explain the difference.
Okay. Isha Dharma Sanatana. Okay. This Dharma is eternal. Isha Dharma Sanatana. You find that in Dhammappada. You find that in Buddhist text. You find that in Mahabharata. You find that in Manusmriti. Okay. So when you tell a Sanatana Dharma, for you, it will represent the Vedic religion. For me, it will represent the Buddhist religion. For someone else, it may represent Khalsa Panth. Okay. So, when you tell Sanatana Dharma, what Sanatana Dharma that you are talking about? That is the first question that we have to ask. So, if you tell that Sanatana Dharma represents all these things, then you are actually talking about Hindutva. So, Savarkar was very clear when he said that the Vedic Dharma, despite the fact that it is the majority religion, it is the most dominant stream, still it is only a branch in this large process of Hindutva. But it is dominant. It is important. It provides a lot of basis. Okay? It provides a lot of basis. It's all there. Nevertheless, it is one of the important streams. And Hindutva is bigger than this stream. The most dominant stream in Hindutva is the Vedic Dharma, we can say that. But still, Hindutva is the universal set and this is the subset.
So basically, Hindutva is the biggest set, and all these sampradayas, whether it is Buddhism or Sikhism or Jainism or Arya Samajis or Brahmo Samajis, all kinds of sampradayas, Lingayats, all sorts of people. Vedikas. Everybody is part of Hindutva.
And if you are going to claim that mine is Sanatana Dharma, what has happened is that every sect has claimed themselves as Sanatana Dharma. Okay. So Hindutva actually opens you a window, opens you a space where you can actually use Sanatana Dharma for all these things. Instead of only for the Vedic system. And there are 700 more pages to go.
No, we won't cover everything. You mention that Hindutva is rooted in deep psychological processes. One can say that these psychological processes and the culture that facilitates the selection of these processes, and which in turn is made by the very processes, have been evolving in this geographical realm. You are talking here about very simple fact that despite the strong emphasis On the sacred geography, Hindutva is not nationalism in its conventional sense. Now, when Savarkar was talking about Hindutva, his clear definition was like, if we just ignore the exceptions that he mentions, like in the case of Sister Nivedita, if he says that those are exceptions, but
And also says that exception actually
the part,
reinforces the rule.
yes. So the rule is fatherland and holy land both have to be in this geography. So there is geography is at the center of this, and this specifically excludes certain sects which don't consider, whose people don't consider this land either as holy land or as the fatherland. So it's very clear definition. It is very much rooted in geography. But you say that this is not the case, and as you said, the definitions that you have given, the way that you have linked it to science and made it at the very essence of our existence, human existence, and you have made it so inclusive that the whole globe uh, can adopt Hindutva. So, what is
Actually-
the difference between your Hindutva, the one that you have just explained, and Savarkar's Hindutva?
There is no my Hindutva. Mine is Savarkar's Hindutva.
But as
Very
I said,
clearly.
there is difference, right?
There is no difference. I ask you to go through the complete book, Essentials of Hindutva by
I have.
Savarkar. Okay. And in the last paragraph, Savarkar says that the height of Hinduness, the Hindu ceases to be a Hindu, and he at the height of his Hinduness, at the height of Hindutva, the Hindu ceases to be a Hindu, and he embraces the entire universe as his homeland. Okay, at the height of Hindutva. So that is the height of
Maybe
Hindutva.
he was talking about
Maybe
converting
that
the
is
whole.
that is your interpretation. The moment you come to the maybe point.
No, this
then
is
you
all
are
about
interpreting.
interpretation. We have,
No.
we can't.
No,
I'm saying,
listen.
for example, I'm saying we can't take one line
I am not
when
taking
the
one
whole
line. I am not taking one
concept
line.
of
I will come
Savarkar.
to this. I will come to this very clearly for you.
Just I will mention one line.
Okay.
In my understanding, Hindutva concept given by Savarkar was a very political concept.
No.
Okay, now you go.
No. That is the problem with
You disagree.
many of the people who also oppose Savarkar, telling that this is a political concept.
Hmm.
So Savarkar was a politician, no doubt about it. He was a politician, but the Hindutva that he discovered is not a political ideology. It was not a political dimension. It has a political dimension, but it was not all political dimension. It is a spiritual process.
It's a political technology, as my friend Priyank says.
Who says?
My friend Priyank, you met him yesterday.
Right. Yeah. It is not at all that. Because when Savarkar talks about the human unity, he says that from pole to pole, humanity is one. Everything else is relative. That is the term he uses. Okay? That is at the very physical level he is talking. Okay? Because he says that everybody has the blood of every other aspect, every other branch of human being. No one can claim purity. Pole to pole, the human unity is a fundamental truth. Everything else is relative. Okay? That is number one. Number two, he says that the height of Hinduness, the Hindu ceases to be a Hindu. That is not a line taken. That is when you are coming to the crescendo of Hindutva written by Savarkar, he says this. Remember, Essentials of Hindutva is basically a very crisp thing. This book, I am telling you, is expansion of what Savarkar said. I don't have any my concept there. I had Savarkar's Essentials of Hindutva as my guide lamp, and with that lamp I searched for the validation, and the book is a result of that. Now, I told two things. Okay. The third thing is the spiritual aspect. When Savarkar designed the flag of Hindu Mahasabha, he could have just put Om in that. If it is a political flag, If it is a political flag, he would have put just Om, just like a crescent, just like a cross. He could have put that. He didn't put that. What did he put? He put the Kundalini serpent there.
How
And
is that any different?
how is
That
that
is
any
very,
different?
that is at the center of Hinduism.
How is that any different? And look at the deep explanation, detailed explanation that he gave for that.
You have mentioned it. I have
yeah,
read it.
Yeah, I am telling
So
you
you
that.
can explain. Yeah.
Yeah. So now you have Savarkar telling that the greatest, the most intense, most creative human bliss and energy is common to all humanity, and India preserved it. India discovered it. And that is why, that is the essence of India. So at every point, whether it is at the physical point, at the spiritual point, at the height of Hinduness, he is talking about an universal inclusiveness, not at the cost of sacrificing what I have as my essence. And what I have as my essence is something that is going to be a blessing to all humanity. Perhaps if there are aliens somewhere else in the universe, perhaps to them also. So, making this as the basis, Savarkar builds his case.
Okay.
It is a very, very strong statement. For every other nationalism, there is exclusion at its heart. For every other nationalism, there is hatred towards another one nation, another one race at its heart. Only for Indian nationalism, it is not there. Mahakavi Bharati, when he was writing about India's independence, and he was also a great nationalist, and he said, why would India get independent? And he said, because India will give the immortal state of bliss to entire humanity. And he repeats that 3 times in his poetry. I found it very amazing that what Bharati expressed has been told very clearly in very precise scientific terms by Veer Savarkar. And that is what has been expanded in this book.
If that was true, why wouldn't he say that whole earth is fatherland and holy land? Why did
Exactly
he
how
say?
he finishes that. Exactly how he finishes the
So
Hindu
his
essentials of
definition
Hindutva.
is very clear.
He exactly that is how he finishes the book. He says that at the height of Hinduness, remember, at the height of Hinduness, we are in the process of moving towards that height. Right now, I cannot claim that all planet is my homeland. So come, let us all hug each other. Let the Afghan Taliban come, and let Bangladeshi Jihadi come, and let the missionaries come and proselytize us. No, he says it very clearly. Okay, this is relative.
Okay.
He says that it is relative. The unity is the absolute. It is relative, but the relative is needed right now. It is exactly the Vaivarya Pramatika division, but it is applied here. And when I tell my Punya Bhumi, what is the basis of making Bharat my Punya Bhumi? Because Bharat has in it all the diversities of the land. For example, recently Sandeep Balakrishnan wrote a very, very, very interesting article telling that the nose ring actually came with the Islamic invaders.
No, it's not true.
Let us assume, it's not true, but let us assume that it has come from the Arab lands rather than from Islamic invaders, from Arab. Let us assume, okay, today an IS or a Wahhabi regime or a Taliban regime, a Salafi regime, they will tell that you should all put purdah, you should all put veil, and this nose instrument should be removed completely. It's a very possible, plausible scenario that can happen in Arabia, right? Let us assume that Arabia was the origin point of fear. But where the nose ring would exist, with all its diversity and beauty, where it would be preserved for all humanity, like the seed bank of a farmer, where all it would be preserved. It's in India. So India is my Punya Bhumi because India is the place where the diversity of the entire planet has been protected against the onslaught of monocultural expansionism. So when a monocultural expansionist force comes, India fights against it. India fights against it without hatred, but it fights against it. Shivaji didn't show any hatred, but he fought against it. Rana Pratap didn't show any hatred, he fought against it. Guru Gobind Singh didn't show any hatred, he fought against it. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose didn't show any hatred. The entire Indian freedom movement didn't show any hatred. Swami Vivekananda didn't show any hatred, but they all fought against monopolistic expansionism. Veer Savarkar didn't show any hatred. He fought against monopolistic expansionism. Guruji Golwalkar didn't show any hatred. He fought against religious expansionism. At the same time, they preserved the essence of India while they could embrace the entire planet. That is what I explain it here.
For example, you said Savarkar was talking about at the height. We are in the process of it. So that's what I was saying, that for this process, he created this concept of...
The Hindutva is the complete process. He didn't create. Let us be very clear about this. Savarkar discovered it, and this particular aspect discovered it. The Punya Bhumi, Pitru Bhumi concept for Hindus is to achieve ultimately this universalism. And I have mentioned both of them. I have presented both of them here. Okay, I didn't differ even a micron from what Veer Savarkar said.
You, from what I understand, you have merged Sanatana Dharma and Hindutva.
See, if Sanatana Dharma merges itself with Hindutva, what Sanatana Dharma? That is what I am asking. Whether it is a Buddhist Sanatana Dharma or whether it is a Vedic Sanatana Dharma.
Sanatana Dharma encompasses all. But
then it is Hindutva.
In Savarkar's definition of Hinduism, which you can call Sanatana Dharma.
You can't call that Sanatana Dharma. You have to tell that the Vedic, he tells it very clearly, the Vedic religion, which is the most dominant religion. If you are going to call Sanatana Dharma and you have to define Sanatana Dharma as, because mostly the traditionalists, they call only the Vedic religion as Sanatana Dharma.
No. From
and
what I mean...
if you are going to call Sanatana Dharma as all the Sampradayas, it's a collective name for all the Sampradayas that have emerged from this land, including the tribal worship of the gods and goddesses, then what you are saying, that is your interpretation of Sanatana Dharma, Sankaracharya wouldn't accept even a... okay.
We are talking about
even
Savarkar's definition of...
wouldn't accept you.
What
I am saying again is your interpretation of Sanatana Dharma is this Savarkar's identification of Hindutva.
Not Hindutva, Hinduism.
Hindutva.
Hindutva, he says, is... Hinduism, he says, is a fraction of Hindutva. Only a
Vedic
small
religion.
part.
Yes.
And he means everything.
Not him. He doesn't mean everything. He doesn't mean, by Hindu Dharma, Vedic Dharma, he doesn't mean everything.
Not Vedic
By
Dharma.
Hinduism also, he means that at that time, dominantly, only the Vedic religion was considered as Hindu. For example, even when you write now,
but he writes...
even when person writes now, he would write that Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, etc. Okay.
But he didn't see them as different.
He didn't see them as different because he saw them in the context of the entire process.
So you are saying for him Hindutva was just this sampradaya, collation of the sampradayas. That's it.
I didn't say that. This is, you are moving back and forth because Hindutva is the process and the religious process of Hindutva takes into account all the streams and you call a person a Hindu. But when you tell Hinduism, in the conventional term, as people are understanding it, Hinduism actually meant the Vedic religion. They didn't include, usually at those time, people didn't include Hinduism, Jainism and Buddhism with the Hindu religion. At that time, for that, Savarkar was telling this. But when he defines Hindu, he takes everything into that. So if he is having a definition of the pan-Hindu Hindu Dharma, then he would have identified it with the dominant religious process of Hindutva. But Hindutva is not only religious process. That also you have to take into account.
Of course. Okay. My understanding is that he gave that definition for a specific reason, that we were going, the nationalism or the nation state concept that had become universal or was becoming universal, that was a new reality for us, for every civilization. So keeping that in mind, he gave this definition where the fatherland and Holy Land has to be this geography, because this was supposed to be our geographical boundary of this nation. that the nation state that we were going to build somehow, or we were expecting it to be built. So in keeping in that geography in mind, he and merging it with nationalism, he came up with this political technology or political concept where specifically there is exclusion, and its exclusion is not bad, it's not a negative thing. I don't know why we are being defensive about it. He
Exclusion.
specifically excluded some people who do not, and it's not just about being born as Hindu or Christian, or if a Christian can consider this land as his fatherland and his holy land, he is more Hindu than the Hindu who does not, who's a communist, whose loyalties lie with China or Russia. So that is my understanding. Otherwise, like if we
Arigant,
can, yeah.
here we are having some hair splitting arguments over semantics. Okay, I will be very clear again.
Yes.
Let us be very clear about this. That is exactly
We
what
are
I have.
we
been,
are
that is exactly
we are
what,
very good friends. So it's
so
it's
let
very
us let us particularly point out this.
yeah.
That is what you just
We are
now
not
said.
fighting.
What you just now said.
Yeah.
That
You agree with it or not?
See, I don't agree with this particular point where you tell that he put this as a kind of a pragmatic thing. Okay, he identifies this also as a fundamental process. That is the so-called exclusion that you are talking about. And I am not defensive about that particular thing. Okay, I told it very clearly. If a person is coming for proselytizing, if a Jigati is coming, if a Bangladeshi infiltrator is coming, we don't have to accept that. We have to fight against that. Okay, so that I have told very clearly, in very clear terms. That is also a process of Hindutva. Because if you are going to allow these things, then you are always going to be fighting these things, and you will be reducing yourselves as one of the fighters with these people, and you will not be able to realize the complete unity for all humanity. The Hindutva as a process has in its heart the vision of human unity, taking into account its diversity. Hindutva also fights against any monoculturalist expansionism. So when a Christian or a Muslim or a Marxist, okay, if he says that I don't want monopolistic expansionism because this land has given me a great it has made me realize that my religion is just one of the many ways of obtaining divine, and so I don't have to indulge in proselytism. And Marxism is just one way of looking at the economic and social reality. It doesn't have to be the only way of looking at social reality. If a person is ready to come to terms with that, naturally it will cut off his Punya Bhumi outside India.
Okay, I have another issue to argue with you on.
Right.
So let's not spend all the time here.
Right.
Let's move on. Okay, this is. I was personally hurt by this.
How?
I will quote this. There is yet another aspect of Hindutva that needs to be taken into consideration. The Hindutva discourse never speaks of a Hindu state, but a Hindu nation. In fact, one of the major axiomatic statements that Hindutvites learn early in RSS shakhas is that India can never be a theocratic state, including a Hindu Rajya, precisely because it is a Hindu nation or a Hindu Rashtra, and that India will remain a secular state only until it remains a Hindu Rashtra. Why shouldn't we be a Hindu state? What's wrong with being a Hindu state?
Well, again, here I am going by what Savarkar wrote. Okay. Yes, state has to be secular.
Why?
Because
okay, first let's say what is secular, because there are a lot of
there are a lot of sampradayas. Because see, when a Hindu arrives at a particular point, okay, then he naturally becomes sampradaya neutral. Sampradaya neutral. It is sampradaya neutrality that we are talking about here. A secular state. Plain and simple.
So Islam, everybody has to be
Sampradaya neutrality
within Hinduism.
Sampradaya neutrality. If you are accepting Islam as a sampradaya,
I am not accepting anything.
Not you. I am talking about a Muslim believer,
okay,
an Islamic believer. Let us say, or the way Islamic, any particular sampradaya believer. If he if he accepts that his is only a sampradaya, then the state is equal towards all sampradaya. The sampradaya person may also believe that his sampradaya is the best sampradaya over all other sampradayas. Okay? But the state cannot show favoritism to one sampradaya over other sampradayas. And when you are talking about mass education, when you are talking about mass healthcare, when you are talking about the welfare schemes that flow from the state, there you cannot show any sampradaya favoritism. You have to have sampradaya neutrality. That is what secular state means. And that is the meaning in which I have used the term. That is the meaning in which Savarkar has defined the whole thing in his big blueprint. There was a Hindu Mahasabha blueprint for independent India, and there also they have used the same term.
Is there anything common between Hindu sampradayas? Are there any core beliefs? We talked so much about Hinduness, Hindutva. When we are talking about Hindu state,
the Hinduness has a core commonality, which I think every religion, if it is to be civilized, has to accept. Okay, and that is theodiversity. The respect for theodiversity. And that respect for theodiversity, acceptance of theodiversity, is the basis of Hinduness. Okay, if that is again how you have to look at Guruji Golwalkar's statement. If a particular religion does not accept this theodiversity, does not respect the theodiversity, a particular religious movement, and if it is trying to become expansionist, destroying all other religion or destroying all other sampradayas, the state has to intervene. It has to stop or eliminate that particular monopolistic expansionist movement.
Oh, we will come to that.
That is exactly what I mean. I think from beyond that, there is nothing to explain there.
No, because for example, Israel, you have studied a lot, that country. It's a Jewish state, right? There are many so-called, you can say, sampradayas within the that religion also. Like people came from all sorts of different countries when the state was
There were no
formed.
sampradaya, different different sampradayas. Okay, go ahead.
I mean, there is theological diversities to some extent within that religion. But there are some core principles which, like, there was a lot of debate that was going on, what to include, what not to, when they were forming the Jewish state. So I'm asking, like,
they didn't form a Jewish state. Essentially, it is a Jewish nation and it is a secular state. Because I will tell you why. For example, if they are adhering to the Jewish religious principles strictly, they cannot allow LGBT in Israel.
No. See, it's not a theocratic state.
That is exactly what I am saying here.
No, you are saying there is no Hindu state in nahi hai. Including you are saying Hindu Rajya. There is no possibility of theology, including Hindu Rajya.
Yeah, theocratic state.
Why
you cannot see again.
For example, let me ask
again. What you are doing is, I will tell you what you are doing is, you are hair splitting semantics.
No. For example, teaching Ramayana, Mahabharata, will you call it theocracy or will you call a Hindu state?
See, Ramayana and Mahabharata are part and parcel of our culture and civilization and history, and it has to be taught.
So
not.
But we are not taught in the secular state. Secular state cannot.
Your definition of, again, see, that is where we differ very clearly. Okay, when I tell secular state, I mean secular state in one sense. You mean secular state in pseudo-secular sense. That is the problem. When I tell secular state, the secular state is duty bound to give its cultural heritage to all the students irrespective of their religion. Whether you are a Hindu or a Christian or a Muslim or a Parsi or a Jew or Sikh or not Sikh, whatever you are, you have to learn Mahabharata, you have to learn Ramayana, you have to respect Ramayana, you have to respect Mahabharata, you have to. Okay? That state is duty bound to create this respect. It is the responsibility of the secular state to create this respect because this is a Hindu nation. At the same time, If it is telling that we are going to only glorify, let us say, Sankaracharya, we are going to glorify only, let us say, Saiva Siddhanta, then it is wrong. There it is not being secular state. Okay,
So
Hindutvites,
we are just discussing over semantics.
Hindutvites of Hindu Mahasabha of Savarkar's time were clear about this. The Hindutvites of the Sank Shaga are also clear about this. What is happening is, when you confuse the pseudo-secular state with this, I am telling you, if you are a secular state, you are duty bound to give the Shat Darisanas to every student. This is important. Where you have to follow secularism, in the case of civil laws, in the case of your legislation, there you cannot have personal laws. You cannot have a personal law for a Muslim, you cannot have a personal law for a Christian, you cannot have a personal law for a Hindu. You cannot have educational apartheid based on religion. If my name is Rama and if I start a school, you will show some kind of a partiality. If my name is Rahim and if I start a school, you will give some kind of partiality. For me,
Which is happening.
That is what I am saying. So this is not a secular state. But they are claiming that it is secular state. You bring back the real secularism in which every student has to learn Ramayana. That is true secularism. Removing Ramayana because it will hurt the sentiments of some monopolistic expansionist religious fundamentalists is not secularism. It is appeasement.
Okay, what I am calling Hindu state, you are calling it secular state. So let's stop at
But
that.
Savarkar calls it secularism.
Lastly, I had two questions, but I think they are the same. It's about Samanvya. So how do we achieve Samanvya with someone who believes in two-nation theory?
We cannot.
So what to do?
You have to fight. You cannot achieve Samanvaya with a person who believes in two-nation theory. You cannot achieve Samanvaya the person who believes...
Who does not believe in dialogue?
You cannot achieve Samanvaya with a person who believes that if you don't accept the book that I hold sacred, then you will go to eternal hell. It is my duty to convert you to my religion. You cannot achieve Samanvaya. Okay? At the same time, we have to make sure that this battle happens in a very proper, correct, ideological way, in a very concentrated way, so that we will win. Okay? And for that, throughout history, we have created various strategies. And that have been documented in this.
For example, you quote Sitaram Goel, his 5 conditions. Can I mention this?
Sure, please.
So the 5 conditions with respect to Islam is that Islam, they have to accept 5 conditions. Islam is only one of the many ways of worship and respects all other ways of worship. Second, conversions to Islam except by conviction cause disruption and disharmony. They have to accept it. Third, Muslims in India should share the national version of Indian history and feel closer to their non-Muslim neighbors in India rather than to their distant co-religionists. Fourth, Muslims should never mix religion with politics and stop demanding concessions in the name of cultural identity. Article 2930. Fifth, accept that the destiny of India is to become a strong, secular and modern state rather than Islamic theocracy. I think this is very much against the Islamic theocracy.
Yes. See, what is the last line that Sitaram Goyalji said? Can you read that? Last words.
Okay, wait. 539. To become a strong, secular and modern state rather than Islamic theocracy.
Does it hurt you? Does that line hurt you?
Yeah, I don't agree with him.
Okay. You don't agree with Sitaram Goyal also?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's progress, right? It's not like we are stagnant. Even with Savarkar, we have to build on what he built.
Definitely.
We have to progress
But
further.
you shouldn't go back to the ages, the glorious ages when in the name of Smritis, women were not allowed to study.
No, no, of course, nobody is advocating for that. I
Let
mean,
us
I won't
hope.
say nobody, but
Yeah, you can't say nobody, and you also cannot
but
say that,
overwhelming majority
and
of the
also
people
you cannot
don't.
say that they are a lunatic fringe, because they
They
are
are.
they are.
They are.
You think that a person who supports child marriage because Smriti says so is not a person who is occupying one of the highest pedestals of Sampradaya? Or can you say that?
He may be now,
See,
but
you said
how much following he has? Tell me.
significant.
Not significant.
You just put a tweet attacking him and then you will see.
No, no, no. Come on, Twitter can't be the barometer
Okay,
for.
then you can go to a particular place where he is talking, you get up and you said that
There
you
are
are just a lunatic
130,
fringe and you see
130
what happens.
crore Indians, 100 crore Hindus. How much following does he have?
How much influence does he have?
He doesn't have any influence. And there are many like him who have all kinds
You
of.
are wrong.
You say he has such influence.
He has significant influence. I didn't say
Is he
majority or
influencing
minority.
policy?
He wants to. Right now, he cannot.
Because he doesn't have the influence. If he wants to and he can't, he's not able to do it.
That is because the secular state is stopping him. That is why we need seculars in the state.
Okay, let's agree to disagree. Chalo, sir. What?
You finished it.
I mean, I think you should have written 2 parts. But next time when you come, you have to come to Raki Gadi with me.
Definitely.
You are promising it in front of everyone, so you can't back down now.
I will definitely come.
This
It's
is
a promise.
this
Yeah.
is a promise
Next time I
long
come-
overdue.
next
4 or
time I
5
come,
years now.
I will plan it that way. We'll go there and we will
And we
also
will go to Kalivangan.
Yes.
Yes. We will go through the whole Saraswati route.
Right.
Great.
That's a wonderful thing.
Sir, thank you so much.
Right.
As always, love to talk with you,
It is
debate
really
with
a
you.
pleasure debating with you. And
We have been
let
doing
us-
that for 5-6 years now.
yes,
So
we have been doing that.
hopefully we will continue to do that.
Yeah.
First time in front of camera, so people might see what are they doing, because I never talk so freely with anyone. But our equation is different.
Yes, very much.
So from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate you, and I really appreciate the work that you are doing. It's a really great work that you have put together. I wish that everybody, it's very ambitious, I must say. So congratulations for this thing, and thank you for coming here.
I have to tell one important thing here. What is the purpose of this book? The purpose of this book is to shock people with different unknown dimensions of Hindutva, so that you will not take it for granted that it is supporting my prejudices, it is supporting my fears, or that it is a very evil concept, it is a monolith, it is a fascist ideology, etc. etc. Okay, on both sides of the fence, you have people with preconceived notions of Hindutva, but Hindutva has the capacity to shock all of them, because it is the basis of Indian politics. Whether you are left or you are right, you have to stand on Hindutva and you have to talk. It is the substratum in which the left and right has to debate.
If I can give a comparison, this book, basically people who are saying, for example, they see Shivaji statue with sword in his hand. After reading this book, they would see that statue without that sword, but
No,
with with a gulab ka fool.
no, they won't. They
Because
will
this
see
is-
the sword.
this
They-
is-
okay. Tell me. I will tell you what.
Yeah.
When they see that sword of Shivaji, they will understand that this sword of Shivaji is a
Only
sword
for
to protect dharma in a very dharmic way. It won't kill a human being for his identity. It will protect dharma. Okay, exactly what Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam wrote about Agni missile. Right? He designed Agni missile. He wrote about Agni missile that this is the missile that will protect peace. It is not going to deliver destruction. That peace is a meta peace. Okay? It is not an ordinary peace that you understand in a very conventional reductionist Gandhian way. It is a different type of peace, a peace that emanates from strength. Exactly. We both said the same thing, right? So that is what it will make you understand.
Sir, I think there are more than 100 pages of endnotes. Is there going to be another book?
There are a lot of things that I have left out here. Actually, if I have written all the things, it would have been, it would have been like a telephone directory of New Delhi. So, old telephone directory, then the present generation won't even know what is telephone directory actually. The point is, yes, there are things that I have to write about.
We discussed that last 3-4 years back that you will end up writing 3-4 books, but I think this alone contains 3-4 books. So
you remember what our common friend Amar used to say about my articles? That
need editing.
4,500 words you are writing, and you have to limit you to.
I was thinking words. Like after writing this, how did you stop? Who stopped you? Because usually you don't stop. You keep adding, you keep writing.
Time.
मैं समय हूँ. Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming. Namaste.
Really, really happy. Thank you. All the best for your.
Thank you, sir.
Bath, right?
Yes.
All the best.
You don't even know the name.
No, I always confuse it with I told you what.
No, don't say it.
I won't say
it. Okay.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.